Hey everybody, back working on the Mustang. Really nice day in October, so I thought I'd drag it outside. What we're doing today is getting the rust off of the roof. I've been sanding this with some 40 grit sandpaper on a DA, and then I also used a wire wheel on my angle grinder, and basically just did as much as I could to get all of the little rust pits off of the roof. There's some filler. We started to put some filler on those areas where the epoxy was, where we glued those plates on from before. And we already did the rust treatment in those areas. But now what I wanted to do, because the weather is nice, and before we get into the cold time of the year where you really can't do a lot of things with water, be too cold, I want to use this rust dissolver on the roof and then get some primer on it. I just happen to notice this, it looks kind of yellow and rusty here, but that's just a reflection of the trees back here and the sun. It's not really that bad over there. So I spent a couple hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours, like I said, sanding and then wire wheeling this thing. So now I'm going to use some rust dissolving chemical to try and remove the rust from the roof. So this stuff here, and basically all you do is you just paint this onto the surface and let it sit there for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then you wash it off with water. Really counterintuitive. I got bare metal and I'm trying to get rid of the rust, and I'm going to wash it with water, but that's what you have to do. I guess the water neutralizes the acid. There's like phosphoric acid or something in here. So what I'm going to do now is get set up, and I will put this stuff on the roof and kind of get it on there as quick as I can. Shake it up a little bit first, and because this is so big, I'm just going to pour it on. And use a paintbrush and kind of spread it around. Pink, it's kind of sticky. It's not like water, so it tends to stay right where you put it. So I got to spread it out a little bit. It smells really bad when you put it on the car, so you might want to wear, a respirator or something, or certainly do this outside. Don't do it in your house, for sure. And you can buy this stuff at Home Depot or Lowe's. That's where I got it. It's not expensive. I think this bottle, I don't know, what is this, like $6 or $8, something like that. And it says it'll mess up paint. So if you have anything painted and you don't want it to get messed up, don't get it on. I'm going to try and not get it in the filler that we put on. Smells. Alright, so I'm done spreading the rust dissolver. You see I got the whole roof covered. Took about 10 minutes to get it all on there. Not very long. So I'm going to let it sit on here. You're supposed to let it soak in for about 15 minutes. I'm going to make sure that the last stuff that I put on has a chance to be soaked in for 15 minutes. Here's just a close-up. There's a bug here. I think he crawled in that stuff, and now he's like, he doesn't want to go anywhere. So it must be pretty nasty. But you can see it really looks weird. I made sure I got a lot of it in those rain gutters, because it's hard to get the sander and the wire wheel down in those little grooves. Alright, we'll come back when it's time to wash it off. So it's been at least 15 minutes now, probably closer to 20 or 25. So I'm just going to take a sponge and a bucket of water over here, like this, and I'm just going to wipe this all down and get all of the rust dissolving chemical off of the roof. So I'll give you a little look at how this is going. Not hard to come off. And it's pretty much just the same color as it is when it goes on. And most of the rust areas are now turned kind of black. I see some up here though that looks still a little rusty. You might have to treat those again. A lot of this black stuff is just, it actually wipes off. I thought those were pits. So I'm going to have to scrub a little harder. See, like this? Let me get the chemical off first. That's why I wanted to show you this. Like, I thought this black stuff was just rust pits, but if I scrub it, it actually comes off. And I thought those were dents and craters that had rust in them. So what I'm going to do is, after I neutralize this with the water, I think maybe I'll just come back and hit it with a little abrasive pad or something, like a Scotch-Brite pad, and get all of that those loose things off. But it works really good. I mean, this is like bare metal. It did a fantastic job. So the first side dried before I could get back over here. And you can see I have sort of like this greenish, rusty patina look on it. Kind of cool if you're going for that, but now we have to clean it off. So what I did on the other side was I took a Scotch-Brite pad, just going down the bucket here, and then I wiped it with that. And the abrasiveness of the Scotch-Brite takes off all those little black spots. And then what I'll do is I'll come back with a sponge and wipe this off, and then it'll be really clean. And there's places here where it looks like it's flash rusting, but when I hit it with this Scotch-Brite right here, it comes right off. So I think that's just part of the chemical reaction that's going on. I'm trying to work quickly though, so I don't leave this water on here for too long. So this job, one thing I learned is you want to have a lot of clean water nearby, so you can constantly change your buckets out. You know, if you had a hose, you could do that. We don't have that hooked up right now. It's getting into October. It's the middle of October, actually. So I'm just working from a bucket. That makes a big difference. So let me finish doing that, wipe it down one more time with really clean water, and then we'll see what it looks like when it's dry. All right, so here we are. It's done. I dried it off with a towel, and you can see it's rust-free basically. And I think these areas here are just pits, and they might have some discoloration in them. I'm going to paint this with like a Rust-Oleum type rusty metal primer, because this is going to be a vinyl top car. I'm not really interested in making it, you know, 100% paint perfect. So if I don't have, you know, the right kind of primer for the finished coats of paint, I can always, you know, sand it down a little bit later. But I want to protect this as soon as I can. So tomorrow we'll give it overnight inside the garage to dry out. And then tomorrow we'll just paint it with a paint. You know, right now it's like raw open metal, and you know, I think, you know, if you get any water on here, it's going to turn to rust almost instantly. You know, I wasn't able to get like all of that sort of bronzy color. You can't get that off. I think that's part of the chemical reaction that's going on. I noticed that we had that when I did the areas with the filler, but probably shouldn't have touched that. And it's not rust because, you know, it didn't spread or anything in those areas, so I'm not too worried about trying to get all of that off. You know, I hit it with the Scotch-Brite 3 or 4 times, and you really can't get it completely to come off, so I think it's actually good that it's there. So it works. It's a little bit of work. You make sure you got to have your water all set up in your buckets and a towel and things. Now, I put it down in this crevice right here, and you can see it got all of that rust turned to black. Up here and in these pits here, I'm not really sure what happened. Those are really deep, so we'll have to come back and hit those again. But for the flat part of the roof, it did a great job, and I can get a little wire wheel or something and get these little areas. So that's it for this project. Thanks for watching. Keep coming back, and we'll be working on the Mustang.